you will see, when you see the occupancy, you will find most of the built up structure is still not occupied. Yet the builder or the developer will never bring the price down. If you bring the price down, suddenly from a consumer's perspective, even the consumer feels, okay, what is it?
I think the real estate market itself is a leveraged market. Availability of land is not easy. The cost of getting approvals is again very high, and the cost of funding and finance is also high. I feel that a consumer ends up paying a little more than what he should be paying in reality, but there are a lot of these cushioning costs which gets built into the overall pricing of a real estate product.
I think I know the answer, but I'll still ask you. Smart cities, hype or hope? Let me see if my guess was right.
What do you think?
Welcome to another episode of Transforming India, the Road to 2047, presented by Mint in partnership with JSA Advocates and Solicitors. I am your host, Alokesh Bhattacharya. I am Deputy Managing Editor of Mint. By 2047, more than half of India's population is expected to live in urban areas, driving unprecedented demand for housing, transport, commercial spaces, and civic infrastructure. This shift requires a fundamental rethinking of how Indian cities are planned, financed, and governed. Real estate development will need to evolve beyond traditional construction models to integrate climate-aligned design, green building standards, digital infrastructure, and resilient urban services. At the same time, municipal governance reforms, innovative financing mechanisms such as municipal bonds and REITs, InvITs, and land use modernization will be critical to enabling scale and affordability. As cities emerge as the primary engines of economic growth, the sector's ability to deliver sustainable, technology-enabled, and inclusive urban ecosystems will shape India's productivity trajectory and its broader transition toward a high-income economy. Today we ask, how can India reimagine its urban future to meet the demands of a rapidly transforming nation? For this, I am joined by two distinguished legal experts who bring deep insights into India's real estate and urban development landscape. So joining us is Lalit Kumar. He is partner at JSA with extensive experience of more than 2 decades in corporate and M&A laws and regulatory advisory. Lalit has advised leading corporates, private equity funds, and financial institutions on complex M&A and corporate law matters. Joining Lalit is Gerald Manoharan, also called Jerry. He is partner at JSA with over 2 decades of experience in corporate, commercial, and real estate advisory. He also works on M&A and fundraisers, strategic investments, and complex land and development transactions. So welcome back to Transforming India, gentlemen. Really glad to have you back with us. So let's start, in this series, we have always started off with what we call a quick 5, or the first 5 questions, which are supposed to be quick. Sometimes they end up getting a little longer, which is fine, but we want to really get into a little depth in some of these. So the first question is, what is the city in your view that has the boldest urban vision?
I think, the answer is not straight, and it depends who you ask. If you ask me, there are few I can name. Right close to where we are here right now, even Gurgaon. I know it is quite haphazard in a lot of people's view, but this is one city one has to watch for, both in terms of commercial and residential real estate. There is Amravati, there is even Navi Mumbai, maybe even Bangalore, from where, Jerry, you come from. Maybe you can add a bit about what you feel about Bangalore.
No, I think Bangalore is reorganizing itself. It's a city which never envisaged this kind of growth. And I think we are reorganizing our municipal structures in terms of, having 5 different kind of corporations within the city. They're trying to get the city a little more smarter than what it used to be. So I think the urban vision seems to be falling in place at some level. Very soon, we are anticipating some local body elections to the municipal corporations. I think that will also facilitate better engagement with the public, because otherwise it's kind of difficult for people to put forth their grievances. So that change is going to happen. Yeah, so Bangalore is one, and I also to add to what list Lalit already provided, I think there's a lot of focus on Ahmedabad. There is also a fair amount of thought process on Gift City, because it is definitely going to be the financial fulcrum for India in the next few decades to come. So there is a lot of promise over there as well, because I think if Gift City launches out in a big way, it is going to be good for all of us. The financial industry, the banking and finance sector, the legal sector, a lot of changes will happen.
Yeah, it's interesting you name Gurgaon and Gurugram, right? Gurugram and Bangalore, both of these cities have been beset with a lot of infra problems, right? But hopefully they'll get resolved, and with some of the steps that you were mentioning. Okay, so let's move to the next question. It's real estate sector. Are you bullish on it or cautious?
I think, it is generally bullish. Okay, so it is what we see the trend or the past 4, 5, 6 years if we see. Now, it has got its share of upswings and downswings. Now, as we talk today, I think it is generally bullish, not what it used to be. The markets have stagnated except for certain sectors or certain luxury segment, especially in the residential real estate, where for whatever reason it is stagnated. But while it should have gone down in terms of prices, because there's a lot of real estate available, yet it's not gone down. So it's perception. And when I said Gurgaon in your earlier question, of course I know the hazards which we face in Gurgaon, yet you see the luxury segment is still where it is. It's just not going down at all. So I would not say it's very bullish right now, but anything can change, because we have gone through a lot of geopolitical issues in the last 1 year that may have some effect on where we are on real estate in terms of investors, even home buyers. So I would again, say it's not hugely bullish, but generally bullish, because that is the nature of real estate sector in India.
So I think Lalit touched upon, real estate in the context of housing, but there is also a fair amount of activities that are happening in retail, commercial, developmental infrastructure such as solar. You have data centers which are emerging as large real estate, consumers. You also have logistics, and now with EVs becoming an integral part of our whole mobility sector, there is a lot of action that is happening vis-a-vis EVs also, like in terms of setting up charging stations, needing facilities for all of that. So real estate sector now covers a whole lot of these, right? Logistics is also extremely important, because it is a huge amount of acquisition in terms of land requirement is happening in the logistics space.
Yeah.
So if you were to look at all of these sectors, other than the retail housing sector, I think everyone is bullish. There is no doubt about that. Real estate is not only limited, because I would refer to real estate more in terms of housing. And there I think what is really important is for a structured housing policy to come up, and therefore to see how real estate evolves with that structured housing policy, because it is just not, housing for the people who can afford good and luxurious housing, but also for those people who cannot afford housing.
Why have prices not gone down? I mean, I know this is a little bit of a difficult question, but we have all been saying, kabhi na kabhi to prices will go down, but they have never really gone down. And they have always been higher than the inflation, right? So whatever much you earn and however much raise you get, the pace at which the price of real estate is rising is higher than whatever you can afford. But people are still buying. I don't know what is happening.
I would partially agree, but look back just 3-4 years back. Even luxury segment, particularly in the Delhi NCR region, post-COVID, around that time when we came out of COVID, the prices did fall of all segments. Even the segment Alokesh you're talking about, it also fell. Now, But the nature of this business is, I mean, of course, it defies to a great extent even the demand supply logic of economics.
Exactly.
So you are right. You will see, when you see the occupancy, you will find most of the built up structure is still not occupied. Yet the builder or the developer will never bring the price down. And also, it's very important who does this first. That is also a challenge. So now if you bring the price down, suddenly from a consumer's perspective, even the consumer feels, okay, what is it? Why the price has gone
What's the
down?
catch?
What's the catch?
Yeah.
So this is the nature, it's something where there will never be a straight answer. But as I speak today, I think the prices have stagnated. Now it depends on what is the capacity of home buyers to go and buy it. But yes, as I said, you are partially right. It's time that it will fall. I doubt, it's so. Yeah, so we have to live with this reality.
Yeah, I know, it's quite strange, huh?
Yeah, because I think, see, real estate is an aspirational market, if that is the right term to use. People are always wanting to get to a better quality of living, have a better address.
Yeah.
So the better requirements always get better. But why is costing so high in India? It's a very valid question. I think the real estate market itself is a leveraged market. And I'll tell you what I mean by that. Okay. One is availability of land is not easy. The cost of acquiring land in India and having a land with good, title is always a challenge. So there is a lot of cost that goes into making sure that a parcel of land is free of litigation, disputes, encumbrances.
Right.
So money is put in there. The cost of getting approvals is again very high. Okay. There are multiple reasons why the cost of getting these approvals are high, and I won't get into the details of those. The third reason is also because, for want of adequate government financing structures, a lot of it is by way of private funding.
Yeah.
And the cost of funding and finance is also high. So the developer suffers a huge cost impact, both in terms of finance cost, acquisition cost, mitigation costs. So a lot of this kind of adds to the value of the cost itself, right?
Yeah.
And then at the second level, again, the consumer has to leverage, because again, the consumer ends up taking a huge loan for it. So, and there are also, because there are so many other intermediaries who are involved, you have a bank who's involved, you have a funding agency who's involved. So the cost points also keep changing, and that is why sometimes I feel that a consumer ends up paying a little more than what he should be paying in reality. But there are a lot of these cushioning costs which gets built into the overall pricing of a real estate product.
Plus material costs also keep going up. Cement prices
of course,
will keep climbing.
Yeah, of course.
Steel prices will climb, and
yeah,
all of that is there. So now you know why the flat you're trying to buy is going out of reach every year.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Let's go to the next question, and that is, what is India's top urban legal challenge?
Yeah, like I mentioned, as a response to my last question, one is we are an agrarian economy, right? And availability of litigation-free, unencumbered land is always a challenge. And the third one, I think, is also because of our whole process of getting approvals, the judicial process, right? Okay, so let me divide it into two parts. So the whole process of getting approvals is time consuming, okay, and it is not transparent. It is not transparent from a developer's point of view. It is not transparent from the consumer's point of view. The second thing is, when it comes to title documents and pre-verification of the antecedents of a particular property, I think that data is not freely available. it gets manipulated very often. Some of it, is not even available for review. So people, are entering into a deal with, pretty much, they're blind to the transaction, and it's largely faith-based, and you hope that everything goes well. So these are some of the immediate challenges, I say. And of course, the other issue is with respect to our own, problems with the way, urbanization is happening, the approvals towards urbanization, the zoning related regulations are also some of these problems. But these are some things which come to my mind immediately. Lalit, have I?
No, you haven't. Good points. But I would say that who you ask this question depends what answer you will get. Okay, so let's talk about an investor. If you ask this question from an investor, the investor would have completely different set of challenges. One is, as you said, approvals and financing, and of course even simple thing like if in a cross-border transaction, if an investor, large fund wants to invest, we are not allowing FDI in agriculture. The first thing for any agricultural land will be the conversion of land use. It takes its own time, it has its own problems. So if you ask the investor, you will get a different answer. If you ask this question from a typical retail home buyer, the problem there would be the trust in the builder, trust in the regulations, and also the buyer is interested in quick delivery of the project. The biggest problem. Now, thankfully, recently the Supreme Court intervened and said a home buyer is a financial creditor. So if the home buyer is not being given the delivery on time, then can be taken to IBC for insolvency. So there's a relief, yet there is a long way to cover. So I would say there are many challenges. Even a simple thing like a diligence check, a title check. We have a very positive outlook. The government, the regulators want to implement digital records, but it's still a distant dream.
It's
right?
very difficult.
So very, very difficult. So therefore, these are some of the challenges. But if I have to put one big challenge is that overall, the trust in that sector, the transparency in that sector, no one is sure. They put in the money, they will get the flat that you said on time. So all this adds to the problem of this particular sector. Having said that, although there is a lot of liberalization, RERA was a complete change the landscape of this. There has been liberalization, whether cross-border investments, even regularization of many rules, even judicial precedents. Yet, I mean, we do have some of the challenges, and they are big ones.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the biggest challenges that people would face is inheritance. Property kiska hai? People keep fighting brothers, sisters, uncles, but that is a different dimension. Let's not go there. So, okay, next question. I think I know the answer, but I'll still ask you. Smart cities, hype or hope? Let me see if my guess was right.
What do you think?
Hype.
I think it's hope. It's
Really?
not a hype. It will, of course, it is.
Maybe it was hype too early.
You can say that. You can say that, that India will develop smart cities, but we have a backlog of many more things. We can even develop our tier 2, tier 3 cities before we actually move on to really smart cities. So in a way, you're right, it could be a hype, but I think that it's a matter of time. And this distant dream, I feel, will be a hope, and not in the near future, but we will see India actually having smart cities.
That's great.
See, the thing is, municipal planning, right, and municipal administration is defined in our constitution. But at the same time, it is a matter which is dealt concurrently by the central government and the state governments. Okay. Now, when I look at the smart city announcement which was made a few years back, I think it was a phenomenal policy leap, okay, in terms of setting tone for what our cities should be, and the kind of minimum infrastructures our cities should have, and the listing of the number of cities which were put there. There were already existing cities, metropolitan cities which were already there, and there were also few other cities which were made part of that list. I think what tends to happen is in a system of concurrent governance, as in the case of municipal administration, the thought process and the budgetary allocations were obviously set out by the central government. And I think a lot of cities took advantage of it. For example, I think Bangalore, Lalit, has gone pretty much green on all of its, local transportation buses, because that was part of the smart city project. I mean, they got a fair amount of funding from the central government and they used it wisely. So now a lot of our buses don't run on diesel. So I think some of these implementations have taken place. Okay, the traffic signaling system in many cities have got improvised. There is this intelligent system where you're able to track traffic flow at least on some certain roads, and you're trying to realign it. So that way, I think as a concept, I think it's fantastic. It sets out the vision, and that vision was coupled with the budgetary allocations. And I guess it's worked. It's worked to the extent it has.
But we're still living in hope.
Hope or a hype?
You didn't answer that.
I think it's definitely hope. I'm very hopeful that it will work.
Okay, both of you said hope, so okay,
Lawyers
nice.
hope, though. Okay,
that's good to know. All right, last quick 5 question, and that is one regulatory change that can unlock growth.
I would say there should be regulation which is there. RERA already provides, timely delivery of projects. I'm talking from a home buyer's perspective. So I would say one change which can change the entire landscape, which will restore faith and trust in the way this sector works, is strict enforcement of timely delivery of projects. And so that enforceability, anyone who's going as a buyer, as a consumer, feels that the rights are protected. So I would say that law needs some more teeth.
Okay.
See, I think it's not easy. I am a great believer that new cities have to be created. That's my personal view. And any law which enables a center-state collaboration in terms of identifying and creating new cities, or as you may call them, satellite cities which have reasonable and realistic connectivity to other cities, is a good way of distributing our urban and semi-urban population. When you're looking, as you rightly mentioned, more than 40% of our population are going to be living in cities. I don't think our cities are equipped for it today.
Not at all.
So it will be catastrophic if we have a situation where we haven't thought through this. Whether it is one change in law, are you looking at a body of regulations? Are you looking at multiple policies to put this into effect? And you need to do it. Because people are moving from the migrant population from different states into cities are also increasing. We have not addressed cultural issues. We have not addressed, the issues of personal choices of these people. They are human beings with their own level of self-respect, their own levels of cultural identity. And I don't think our current city structures are addressing any of these. So there's a lot to be done in that space. I mean, I just hope that there is a body of regulation which can come in to enable something like that.
Yeah, but just to add, Jerry, see, we don't have, we are not, there's no dearth of regulations. The point I was trying to emphasize is its enforcement. Assuming that what you are saying, all those regulations are put in place. The problem I think this sector has suffered is its enforcement, and whereby, a few years ago, RERA wasn't there. So things have changed.
Yeah, of course.
With the implementation and coming into force of RERA, things have changed. But I still feel that distance needs to be covered, whereby, people feel, whoever is in this sector feels there is a lot of enforcement, right enforcement. I think that would be, in my view, the step in the right direction.
Enforcement is a big issue. I mean, not only in real estate, but in many others. In fact, in the previous discussion also, the earlier podcast, which you should see if you haven't seen, is that I was mentioning that in one of our roundtable discussions, one CEO from the wastewater waste treatment industry, right? Said that all we need is enforcement. We don't need more regulations. We don't need fiscal benefits. We don't need any incentives. We don't need anything. Just enforce what you said you will.
Exactly.
Yeah, make it happen. That's the only thing. Okay, very good. Initial discussion, and let's move on to the main body now. And a little technical and slightly complex, but you should stay with us because it's going to get interesting. Let's talk about land use, zoning, and urban projects. So, Jerry, this question, we can start on this. How are changing land rules, land use, and zoning regulations impacting large-scale urban projects?
Yeah, I think what is happening is that I work in different states, and what we are seeing very clearly is that a lot of the state governments, their town planning authorities, are obviously trying to find ways to develop better zoning programs. Town planning assessment is happening. Surveys are also being conducted in order to make sure that there is a certain designed, pre-mediated urban growth in their respective cities.
Okay.
But it is not easy. And I'll tell you why it is not easy. It is because the way a lot of our cities have been built, historically, is that you have a lot of the central action that happens in one part of the city. The residential development has not happened in tandem around those regions very often.
Okay.
Because of which what tends to happen is people are still traveling from the residential areas to the working areas, and therefore there is a huge demand for supporting infrastructure. But now what we are seeing is, when you look at all the current cities and also the smaller cities which are developing, they are trying very earnestly to build coexisting infrastructure, which could be your workspace, your community space, your educational institutions are all available around, so that you are building a kind of a community, a self-sustaining community there. But is it happening? In some pockets we see this happening, but it is still a big challenge. For example, educational institutions require larger tracts of land. Sometimes those large tracts of lands are not available in these kind of specialized areas which are being provided.
Yeah.
So people will still have to end up traveling. So as in Bangalore, in other cities, what we see is a last mile connectivity is a huge issue. You today have metro rail, which is running internally within the cities. We have a network of bus which are operating. Of course, you also have private operators like the Uber and the Ola. And so last mile connectivity and safe transportation which is available for people is still, missing. I think that is something which needs to be developed. But what I also realize is that some states are obviously faring better than the other. I think because the political will is strong, the need to demonstrate that they are still in control, that urbanization is not haphazard, those states are able to pitch better than the others. So as an example, about a week ago, the government of Karnataka has now come up with a new notification which says that if you are using an agricultural land for implementation of a solar plant, you don't need to go in through those land conversion related approvals. Because they said that we made the process transparent, you don't have middlemen who are involved, and it is an easy process by which you are able to use the land directly for a solar renewable energy purpose. So these kind of proactive changes to the law, will help people. One is it will provide a sense of definitive direction to people to say, this is the law, this is clear, so we will go on this route and this is the kind of operations we are going to sustain from a business point of view. So that clarity is there. Now what has also happened is, because I don't think we have traditionally been great town planners, so to say, right? ideally, in the ideal situation, the population has to follow the development. Okay, and the development should not follow the population. But in India, what you've really seen is that the development has followed the population, and that is a little difficult to handle, because people have already gone, they have taken over the land parcels, they have built small housing locations there, they have kind of sold land parcels, layouts have been formed, developments have been haphazard, infrastructure is not available, and then the government realizes, oh, you know what, we have 50,000 people living in this community and these guys have got absolutely no amenities.
Yeah.
Then the government goes chugging there to see what it can do. And the restructuring, reconstruction is coming at a huge cost, because you can't vacate people, you can't acquire those lands. So it becomes a big challenge.
Yeah.
That has to change. And we will have to adopt the models like what we are seeing in some of the Western countries, is where the government goes before the population, identifies a large tract of land, readies it for development, and does not create some kind of private-public partnership in the process, but does not let go of the lands very early on time. Because what we have seen in some of the developments is that while the government was developing and trying to find ways to develop, a large parcel of land into a technology city or into a proposed project, private players have also entered and they have started doing what they wanted to do. And that has caused a huge amount of mess, large litigations, and some of these litigations have run for 20 years, and the benefits, the public have not benefited from it at all.
Right.
So these kind of challenges, if avoided, can help us build better urban infrastructure, enjoyable urban infrastructure, okay, because it's not that we have a small population, right? Our population is a large population, and to facilitate the mobility of this population in a secure manner has to be done.
Absolutely. Very good points there. Lalit, what legal reforms could unlock institutional investments in real estate? And if you want to add anything to what Jerry said, you could do that too.
No, I tend to agree. Let me supplement with this question of yours. It's a very important question on legal reforms. I will put it in several baskets. See, first of all, and that's not unique for only the real estate sector. You talk about any sector, the certainty in any regulations which govern that sector has to be there. Everyone wants, institutional, investor, developer, even we're not talking about retail now, but retail investors, everyone wants a certainty in the regulations. That is a very, very bare minimum ask. Second thing is that if the project for which the real estate or whatever project is being developed, the clearance has to be very timely. A big bottleneck is clearance of the project. It delays. Even if we talk about the number of approvals, there's humongous number of approvals one project would take.
Yeah.
Okay. And it actually delays it. Everything only gets started, say, after 2 years. So one big reform I would say is that it's very ambitious, a single window clearance, but we should and start thinking on those lines. And there are other sectors where single window clearance is given. Although it will be, as I said, ambitious, but we should start thinking on those lines. That will shorten the clearance for any project by a substantial amount of time. Third thing I would say is the funding option. Of course, as Jerry and we discussed earlier in the session today, there are a lot of funding options, both domestic and foreign. However, if of course there is clarity about it, it will help the sector better. Fourth thing I would also like to say is we still need some form of reforms in our RERA. Today, the law applies quite clearly to developers, to home buyers, but people who are approving the projects, I mean to say the government authorities, they are really outside the ambit. They have to be brought into the ambit of RERA so that they are responsible, they are accountable, right? So which is where things will start falling in place, things will start getting streamlined. So I would say one legal reform is this thing should be implemented in RERA. One more thing I can think of is we have seen instances where projects have gone, companies in real estate have gone in insolvency, and they've gone to IBC. Now, what happens is, if you see, if there is one company which is developing several projects, if one particular project goes into insolvency, or that project, not the entire company, because it's not project specific, it is company specific, the company goes for insolvency in the IBC. So therefore, all other ongoing projects, they may be timely, they may be good, are affected.
Yeah, right.
So we need, of course, there is a solution to this. The solution is very simple, that every project is housed in one special purpose vehicle, SPV. But sometimes the reality is there are more projects in that entity. So we need clarity there. Last thing I would say is about exit. See, when you say about investors, anybody who's put the money, the need is, or in fact the expectation is, a timely return, the exits. Now, if the investor is a domestic investor on a level playing field, they have a better chance of exit because there are no cross-border regulations which apply to them. But if the investor is a foreign investor, then there is a certain lock-in period. There are more difficult conditions, if I may say, for an exit for a foreign player. So this sector is, I feel that we need a more level playing field. All the contracts, development contracts and home buyer contracts, the enforceability continues to be a challenge. That legal reform we definitely need. And lastly, quicker dispute resolution. Much has been done through arbitration and other medium, yet there is a slow process of dispute resolutions. So which is a larger legal reform we need, not specifically for real estate sector, but I thought I'll mention this about real estate
the
sector
time
too.
taken for cases to complete is a major problem everywhere, not just in real estate. So we touched upon RERA quite a bit during this thing. So the follow-up question to you, Jerry, on that is, has RERA really been effective in addressing, I mean, we all say that it has been very effective, but how effective has it been, and where are the gaps?
No, I think RERA has been a good legislation. Because I have been working with developers, with consumers during the pre-RERA period, and post-RERA, we are beginning to see a far more empowered bunch of consumers. So what is the main objective of RERA? It had to kind of work on 7 important aspects. One is to find clear stipulations against project delays, fund diversions, lack of information. So basically, when consumers are not provided adequate information, there is no memorandum which is circulated with your prospective purchasers. Fraudulent pre-launches. The launch is only on a newspaper or on a flyer, but there is nothing in reality. Weak consumer rights, stalled projects, and poor construction quality. So these were the 7 broad principles which RERA had to put an end to. And I think it has successfully done it. Some of the state RERAs have come up with phenomenal observations, and they have really empowered, consumer action in the area of residential developments. While I think from an administrative point of view and a regulatory point of view, I think RERA has been a fantastic gatekeeper. Where I think RERA has not been able to really meet the end objectives, it's from consumer relief. Because what has happened is, while the RERA does hold the developer liable, it does penalizes the developers, imposes cost, imposes damages, passes orders for refund of the monies paid by the consumers along with interest and other penal damages. The problem is the enforcement of these orders are almost impossible. Like there is a record to show that in Karnataka, for example, I think last year about the total, in terms of fines and damages which was awarded was close to about 700 and odd crores. Only 10% of that actually came to be recovered by the consumers. Because if the developer is not willing to pay up, for reputational reasons, and if he wants to remain truant, getting that money out of the developer is almost impossible, because the order of the RERA is not similar to that of a civil court. That gap is there, and I hope that gap gets addressed, because if there is an enforcement mechanism which is integrated with the RERA, then I think it will be a lot more effective, and people there will be empowered. The other problem that we are also beginning to see is, just like with any of our other court cases also, is that what was envisaged at the time when the legislation was put together is, they said that 60 days is a time when RERA should ideally take to resolve a complaint. But now we are seeing matters pending with the RERA for 18 months to 24 months and even beyond that. So there are these administrative issues and delays.
Is it because of the volume?
Absolutely because of the volume, but because, you know, some of these cases are also very frivolous. And unfortunately, we don't have a first level registry which kind of filters out some of these cases.
That is necessary.
So that will take some time, but that is the case with most of our dispute redressal mechanism. You know, whether it's in the civil court or whether it's before the RERA, we don't have the registry system where the first level of scrutiny takes place. So that delay is there, and people also find ways to drag a case. I mean, so it's a typical problem that we have even within RERA.
True. And we've been talking also, we spoke a little bit about smart cities, right, Lalit? So are there any new, legal models that are emerging around smart cities, around REITs and urban development?
Not specifically around smart cities, but of course REITs have been there for a while, and it is good. See, it's got what REIT has done. It's got retail public for investment, like the companies are listed in all sectors. This is a special real estate investment, so it's got even the retail public, it's got institutional investors to the market. And as we talk, there are listed REITs already, and they're doing quite well. Now, one or two major things that have happened, and that's SEBI has come out with newer regulations to bring more public and retailers to this platform, are something which is the small and medium REITs. So there is a special class, and it has different eligibility, I think 5 crore to 50 crores. The investor size has to be some 200, minimum investor size to be 200 to be for that REIT to be floated. So these are, reforms, and they will keep happening, because the fact is the sector is evolving, and therefore regulators, SEBI, and even time will come, we will also see some liberalization in our FDI norms towards this sector.
Right. One of the things, Jerry, that there's a lot of consciousness around these days is green, right? Green in everything. Green in your food and in your, green buildings and all that. Is there a way that law can support and provide supportive frameworks for, more sustainable and climate-friendly kind of city development?
See, I think ESG, right, environmental, social and governance, has been topical for the last few years in India. Corporates are beginning to realize the importance of enabling a safe environment, not for us, but for the generations to come, and also for us also. And we are beginning to see a lot of our cities crumble. Quality of air, quality of water is not good, and people are not complaining too much. And of course, we tend to accept things and move on with it, right? That's also because we are a resilient society from that perspective. But that is not to be. And what we are therefore beginning to see is there is greater corporate activism definitely that is happening in this space. Are the governments waking up to this reality? To some extent, I would say. But we still are working with some very old structures of our legislation under the Air Act and the Water Act. I think where we need better engagement is using our technical expertise, making sure that third-party technical agencies are involved for evaluation, making sure that certifications are provided. Right now, commercial buildings and residential buildings are provided with green-related certifications. but it is important that you have well identified reputed third party agencies to provide approvals as may be required. Because there again what happens is, what we have seen and what I have seen from experience is that sometimes our engagement with the state pollution control departments become very difficult, because it either becomes so mechanical and process driven that we question whether they are really losing the true picture of what it is to look at the environmental impact of a certain project. I'll give you a couple of examples. So at one time, a lot of development in Bangalore, as you are aware, has happened on lake beds. Okay.
Yeah.
And Bangalore city was a city of lakes. It helped in providing the right kind of drainage, prevented flooding of the city, because we are a city which is also located on a higher altitude. But unplanned urban development, okay, lack of good application of mind has resulted in a chaotic development of the city. Okay, but what we have also seen emerging is that a lot of our commercial developments, a lot of our retail developments now in Bangalore are focusing on being green compliant, environmentally sensitive. So we are seeing some good progress there.
Even in residential, I sometimes come across advertisements and all messaging from companies that this is a very sustainable project coming up and it's very green friendly and all that, which is nice. I think in a way it's good.
It is, but again, I would say a long way has to go. It needs a change in mindset. It is not about regulation. It's not about developers. It's everyone has to believe in that. When consumers will start really demanding, right? Like ESG is very important for investor. Can't have any agreements these days where you will not insist on an ESG clause, but it still needs a lot of involvement. Right. So you are right. They are good in advertisement. Some of them do have it, but I would say more needs to be done to go into that depth.
Absolutely. Great. So that brings us to the end of our core discussion, and we will now end this conversation with another quick five, and we'll try and keep it really quick this time. Okay. What's one regulatory trend everyone should watch?
I mean, I would say, of course, more liberalization. It's a general answer, I know, but I would say that's been the norm.
More reforms,
more liberalization, and that's how there is a growth for any sector. At the same time, a right balance has to be struck between what the regulations are they doing what they are intended to do. I would say that, in my view, would be a major change in a requirement.
Okay. One regulatory trend everyone should watch.
I think what is brewing somewhere is a collective approach for better urbanization between the state and the central government.
Okay.
It is not likely to come out as a statute, but it is definitely going to come out as a policy in lines with what I mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
So I am looking forward to that, because while some sectors of the real estate package may kind of stagnate, I think new cities, emergence of development of new cities will obviously throw open a lot of opportunities, and I am looking forward to that.
Okay. Both of you handle a lot of clients, right? You advise and you handle their cases and all. What do you see as the most common mistake that they make?
Common mistake is...
You don't have to name anybody.
Of course. I think there's really no common mistake they are doing. I think it's just that they should focus on writing their contracts, understanding the sector very, very well, and don't get caught by a surprise. And of course, engage good advisors and lawyers.
Well said.
Yeah, smart. So it's not one common mistake, right?
Okay.
I think there are a number of mistakes which every corporate will make. And it could be because they don't want to allocate adequate resources for those elements which enable these compliances. And therefore, what happens is they end up missing the bus when it comes to compliance.
Right.
So that is a common mistake which I have seen.
Mm.
A lot of our businesses are cost conscious. They like to cut corners for some of these aspects, which become problematic in the long run.
Okay. What's an underrated legal reform that India really needs?
I can take that because I strongly feel we need, like we are moving, we are a digital economy.
Yes.
But land records and land related things completely are manual. There are very registrars offices and all of that is humongous paperwork. This has been government's agenda. They've been talking about it. We need digital records, land records.
Fast.
That is one major thing. It will be a path breaking change if we can achieve this.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think as part of the smart city projects, I think digitalization of land records also, at least in urban cities, was included as part of it. There is some amount of work which the governments are doing, especially Karnataka and Tamil Nadu, if you ask me. They have started the process in right earnest. Are all the documents available? May not be available, but what is there is being digitalized. See, in terms of specific real estate related land reforms, if you ask me, see, if you historically look at the ways our lands, were distributed post the land reforms period, is that the antecedent titles have always been a bit of an issue because of the way our succession laws have worked.
Yep.
And distribution of properties, and that is something which hopefully can be streamlined over a period of time. And that will bring in more clarity is what I feel. But otherwise, as a master stroke, if you ask me, is there some new legislation which I want to, which will really change how things work? I can't think of anything at the moment, but policy changes are most important.
Yeah, but the point about succession that you made, it's actually a very important thing because it's something that has plagued our system for decades, right? I just hope we find a better way to handle those things. Okay, one last question that is a very broad generic question, but you give one answer. What's your view of India's regulatory future?
I'm positive. I mean, I look at the track of not only real estate sector, everywhere there has been reform, there has been liberalization, there is very serious effort by the government to change things. So one word, positive, two words, very positive outlook.
Yeah, I think it's been very proactive and I hope it remains that way.
Fantastic. Actually, the regulations in India have been on a very proactive kind of a roller coaster. I mean, even a roller coaster would be an inapt metaphor because there are also troughs along with the peaks, right? But yeah, I suppose regulation in India has been moving in the right direction. We've got a lot of good stuff going around in every industry, right?
Yeah.
Right. And the IBC has been a big
Definitely.
game changer. Thank you very much, Jerry and Lalit. We've had really a wonderful conversation. I hope you enjoyed it, enjoyed listening to it as much as I enjoyed moderating it. So as we heard today, India's urban transformation will be central to its economic ambitions for 2047. With modernized land governance, innovative financing, climate resilient planning, and technology driven infrastructure, the real estate and urban development sectors can shape cities that truly match India's growth aspirations. That's it for this episode of Season 2 of Transforming India, the Road to 2047, presented by Mint in partnership with JSA Advocates and Solicitors. I am your host, Alokesh Bhattacharya. It's time to say goodbye. Until next time, take care and stay future ready. Thank you.